All right, good morning, everyone. I think a slightly late start, but I'm sure we'll make up with a lot of the insight and the learning that exists and the experience that exists on this platform today. I've had a bit of a chat. We've been coming from different parts. The furthest is Gurgaon. Of course, some people have been coming from Mumbai as well, but so today has been a slightly different day. The people from Gurgaon have landed later than the people from Mumbai. So thanks so much for joining us. I think we're very thankful to Business World for inviting us today. A very, very important topic, and as soon as the topic was given to me, I suddenly reflected back on a Twitter conversation that happened between Mr. Anand Mahindra about 5 years back when they launched an electric vehicle, a sports electric vehicle called Batista. I think this was their launch of the acquisition design firm that they had. And obviously he launched it, and it was amazing in terms of the look and feel and sports car. And all of a sudden in the comments, somebody says, "Kitna deti hai?" Right? How much do you get for it? How much mileage or whatever else? Of course, Mr. Anand Mahindra's reply was also quite amusing and to the point. He says, "Electric hai, shock deti hai." But what I'm trying to highlight here is the fact that there's so much conversation around digital transformation. There's so much conversation around what's happening post-COVID. Some things we believe have changed, and some things we believe fundamentally remain very similar. Now, how do organizations, how do brands, how do consumer-facing individuals, people, organizations, they manage this whole balance of the same as well as being different? We couldn't have asked for a better panel. Obviously, we have Sai, we have Ajay, we have Rahul, and we have Zoher with us. So maybe I'll start with the first question, and I'll maybe request Zoher a little bit to expand on this. Of course, there are tools and channels. There's so much there that is very different. There's so much digitalization. We know that a lot of channels have moved towards the digital space. But do you really think that there's some aspects which have remained the same in terms of consumer engagement, in terms of consumer understanding, consumer behavior, that will always stand the test of time?
See, Indian consumers are evolving, and Indian consumers are evolving on a hyper activation mode, because now they are being more empowered, more aware, and they are with their mobile phones everywhere, so the information is on their tips. So first thing is, they are becoming more and more aware. Second thing is that the mindset still remains. So some amount of mindset is being carried over from, so the middle class values or the cost consciousness values still continues to remain. I want a quick commerce player to deliver in 10 minutes, but still I want it at a discount. It is still there in our DNA. So commanding a premium over service becomes more and more difficult in the Indian context. Also, see, basically, the aware consumer is making choices, and they are making choices in a very hyper-competitive world. In this hyper-competitive world, they are making choices to ensure that they buy the best, and it is a personal matter of pride that I am making a informed decision. That particular, I believe, is a matter of a pride which an Indian consumer takes, saying that yes, I am making a more informed decision over earlier I was not making an informed decision. Now I'm empowered, I'm taking a more informed decision. So that particular, I believe, change is happening, but continues with the old DNA values of cost consciousness and impulsiveness still is being retained by the consumer.
Obviously change, but at the same time, the cost consciousness element remains largely the same. Your brand is very, very treasured, especially during gifting times, and I'm sure beyond that as well. So Rahul, would you agree with Zoher about what he said? Because your industry has obviously had let's say, in a sense, a positive run, a good run, post-COVID, a lot more awareness of insurance and the different products. What is your take?
So thanks for that. Good afternoon, everyone. I think fundamentally, I would agree with what we heard right now, but I would maybe draw attention to three things, and I think that's what we experience within the insurance space. We've got Sai on the panel. I'm sure he'll double it up when it comes to him. I think fundamentally what we've seen that this entire phenomena of wanting to be in control or wanting to have access to being in control, I think that's a phenomena that we're definitely seeing play out in a certain way. Information flow hence impacting wanting to be in control. I think that's one piece that we've definitely picked up. The other thing which we believe, at least in insurance, in many new models that have emerged for sure, but the role of the human factor, because fundamentally you're looking at insurance as a long-term relationship product for our consumers today or customers tomorrow. And we've seen that the role of the human factor, while this prospect or customer wants to be in control, but there's always that play of the human factor, because that's what, again, culturally out of the mental model that we heard, we see trust gets extracted from the presence of some human in conversation, and insurance definitely sees that for sure. While we have started seeing a lot more customers coming to manufacturers or through the aggregators directly, for sure. I think that's a new age phenomena. The third thing that I as a marketer, or all of us as, say, belonging to the marketing fraternity, would believe in, that the authenticity of message is far more out there to be seen now, with the audience being able to just unpeel. There is this entire litmus test of saying that, okay, there is an instant evaluation happening through the advent of social, through the advent of omni touch points that's happening around. So as marketeers, as brands, how would you deliver trust yet be authentic? How would you deliver trust yet be authentic and still be in a conversational discussion or engagement with the customer? So I think that's the pieces that we've seen insurance also, or Max Life Insurance also seeing through. But largely, yes, I think there is a sense of continuity, but there is that infusion of new elements that's coming along.
Thank you. So you spoke about the authenticity of message. Were we not being authentic earlier? Ajay, what do you think? Were we not being authentic?
Yeah, it's early morning, so if I'm allowed a little fun.
Absolutely.
I think we overplay this point of change, right? Yeah, Bill Bernbach said that. I think oftentimes we talk in terms of what would you base your business on? Would you base your business on stuff that is changing, or would you base your business on stuff that is firm kind of stuff? If you reflect back, I think oftentimes we dwell too much into our products, but from time immemorial, right? I think the needs haven't changed that drastically, right? We all love to be admired, right? We all love to celebrate stuff. We all have a sense of need for security. So at times, I think we far overdo this piece in terms of the change and the evolution. And the other piece that I think we forget oftentimes is that we are talking to human beings, right? At the end of the day, we are not talking, I dislike the term consumer, because it's, in my mind, it gives me a visual of a container into which your product is getting poured. We are not dealing with containers, right? We are dealing with human beings. And those things fundamentally haven't changed in 5,000 years. They will not change. The manifestation of some of that changes a little bit. Yeah, were we not communicating before phones? Were we not celebrating before phones? Was there not need for appreciation and standing out before I think the most. So I think we overplay some of this stuff. Also, we overplay at times the roles that our products and our categories play. Our salaries come out of that. But we overplay the roles that they play in consumers' life. It's far more focusing on the human being that you're talking to, the core need that you're talking to. As long as you do that, I think oftentimes it remains true to truth. to that. Also, I think sometimes some of our, let's say, maybe digital marketers or media players have developed this FOMO among us. They've done a fabulous B2B marketing with us. They've developed FOMO with us that the world is going to change tomorrow. Today it is the metaverse. Tomorrow it is AI. Day after, God knows something. And the world is entirely changing. Our consumers are not changing. They are human beings, same needs. Formats might change, but I think it's a far simpler way and far more grounded way, I think, of looking at things to sort.
Thank you. So, fear of missing out. I mean, you're a digital-first organization, Sai, Policybazaar. What's your take on what Ajay says? I mean, what's your orientation to, the users or the consumers or the policy holders?
Sure. I think I pretty much agree with what the panelists have said. But just one point, the authenticity part was very interesting, and I just wanted to share 2 bits on that, and then I'll move to the other part. So I think you raised a point that is authenticity important now? Was it not earlier? I think my take on that is authenticity has always been important, but just that in today's age it's become paramount, because earlier, even with a little less authentic or communication, you can get away because the consumers did not have the information overload to check or find out about it. But in today's time, your consumers are themselves creators, so it is impossible for you not to be authentic. And the other point on authenticity is that again, why it is paramount to be authentic with your communication, with your promise, with your product promise and everything is because if you are authentic, it will absolutely and definitely hit and reach the consumer, and the consumer will give a reaction. As a marketer, I've seen that I've failed more than I've succeeded, because a lot of experiments that fail actually do not come out in the open, but the ones that succeed, which they come out in the open, and what happens is that we become prisoners of those success, because we try to replicate the same similar kind of things. But again, one authentic communication might not be as authentic the second time. So I think what it does is that you stop experimenting then once you succeed in a campaign. So the more we experiment with our communication, with our marketing goal, the more authentic and more time you fail, you will get to know that what works, what does not work, and you become authentic. And coming to the back point of how the digital user earlier and now, I think one of the biggest change that digital has done, and thanks to I have just a very small story. Before I joined Policybazaar, I used to work in a manufacturer company, and then at that point of time, what used to happen is that whenever we used to do marketing campaigns, one of the sales head came and told me that look, Sai, whatever campaign you do, it doesn't matter, because insurance is a product which is actually sold, which is actually pushed. But after joining Policybazaar, what we could really do is that we could create change this push to a pull, wherein people, because of the platform, because of the marketplace platform, people could come and compare and buy. So there was a major shift that we saw in the consumer behavior of from a push to a pull, wherein today we get a lot of consumer queries automatically, rather than we reaching out to our sales team reaching out to them. So what I'm trying to say is that obviously technology has brought about this change, but also the consumers are technology is as good as as good as the as a consumer. The moment the consumer is ready, the technology suddenly becomes more powerful. So yeah, that's.
I think the very interesting point Sai makes, and Rahul, I think you must be reverberating with this point. We were talking about COVID and what happened thereafter. Earlier, you had to sell, different products, in your portfolio, and now people actually come along to you and say that, hey, I want to plan my future better. Tell us a little bit more about this phenomenon.
So I think if you were to just maybe look at a larger time horizon and then bring COVID into the discussion, what we had seen always was that, again, from a manufacturing frame, manufacturers like Sai, myself, and the other category players were always trying to grapple with this entire piece that how best to push life insurance. And you always had a role of an intermediary. You always had the age-old advisor coming in and playing a role over there. You had your bank relationship manager. In the timeline, you had the advent of the aggregators. Like Sai mentioned, you had a marketplace competitive where you had a sense of relative comparison control being given to the user. And with what was happening in the entire digital ecosystem, you started seeing signals that yes, there is a specific segment that wants to come direct, that wants to interact direct, yet have a human-assisted conversation in the process. Cut to COVID. I think fundamentally what changed for all of us in the life insurance space or the larger insurance space was that what was left intangible, uncertainty, just suddenly came as a center table conversation for everyone because it was right out there. And when you convert or when you take this conversation forward, the uncertainty just by design made conversation for insurance a lot more prevalent and awareness went up. And then when you look at how the insurance ecosystem, manufacturer side, aggregator side just doubled up in trying to deliver a kind of a digital experience in parallel to what were the other models available. I think that just opened up the funnel a lot more. And also, the second thing that we have seen across board, Vishal, is that life insurance versus the right life insurance. I think gates and mental models are opening towards that conversation that there is merit in looking at the right life insurance. Term insurance as a conversation is exactly that phenomena that's coming and talking to all of us. That yes, there could be a life insurance product that you may have taken thinking of some savings, thinking of some investments, but fundamentally uncertainty needs to be addressed by having a pure life insurance and hence term. And again, term as a concept or term insurance as a concept has also been made a lot more consumer friendly by talking in consumer language. Again, authenticity. The fact that manufacturers can talk about sum assured, but consumers or prospects or receivers understand cover. And you made that conversation a lot more absorbable and understandable by saying that, okay, just go back and look at, do you have a 50 lakh rupees cover? Do you have a 1 crore cover or not? That's the bare minimum. And then you unitize that entire conversation by saying that, okay, it's all about a 600, 500 rupee per month kind of a conversation. So I think that's the phenomena we saw. Evolution, yes, a lot of work to be done. And I think, again, the collective ecosystem of manufacturers, aggregators put together, I think we're on that journey. And experimentation, I'll borrow from Sai to say that this category has been, in our own ways, been at the forefront of driving experimentation in many ways possible.
Right, okay. So, Zoher, is there, yours is a trusted, fast-moving consumer brand, chocolates and its derivatives. It must be all systems go, it must be business as usual, or has this whole digital age changed your approach to the market or how you relate to it?
See, FMCG has changed, and in terms of behaviors are the same, but in terms of two things have changed. One is day in the life of the consumer has changed. Second thing is the media consumption has changed. India skips revolutions because the delta is there. So other markets went from a single TV market to multiple TV markets to individual screens. We did not go to multi-screen at all in home. We just went from one screen to individual handheld devices. And hence the entire way of activating the brand changed a lot. Earlier, when I used to plan, media plan, whether I was doing SEC A or I was doing SEC C, the top 10 programs, 80% of the top 10 programs used to be the same. Right now, it's a lot different because everybody, now NCCS is one particular cohort. You're going beyond that to persona-based cohort targeting. You're doing dynamic content optimization. So you're doing a lot more in terms of persona-based activation and more permissive content which is there. So the person is consuming content in that particular fashion what you want to. So that particular thing opens up from a activation point of view. So that is something what we try to build. In terms of consumer trust, what we narrate and what we try to live is to the highest expectations of quality, the way we source our products, and I believe as a company what we do is not till the time we sell the product, but till the time consumer consumes the product. So because when you are selling premium products, you are not selling just products, but you are selling experiences. That evolution we are trying to maximize till the end point.
Thank you. So Ajay, interestingly, when we were speaking earlier, 70% of cement sales for you is in the B2C segment, which is quite interesting. I mean, I would have thought that this is largely a B2B product. Intermediaries are there, and they kind of determine what brand gets sold. How do you manage this?
So I think India is very, very different. India is layers and layers. I don't sell to any one of the people sitting in the room, right? Because most of you stay in apartments, somebody else does the purchase for you. But for most of India, they build their own homes kind of stuff. Homes are, you build typically about 8 million homes in this country. India is an open construction. Even on infrastructure side, India is an open construction site, right? You travel to Europe, I don't think you see as many under construction signs there per se versus India. So we talked about India being young. It's a country with ambition, aspiration, and there are bottlenecks to that aspiration. There is a limit that is put that if you're come from a rural village, you can aspire, you might have great ambition, you might have great vigor, but you can aspire only to so much. And the bottleneck, which in many parts of the world is not there, for us, I think it is infrastructure, and we are bridging that infrastructure. Now, coming back to your point in terms of how do we kind of talk to a lot of these people, this used to be a very supply side kind of industry. I remember childhood days when cement used to be rationed, right? From there capacity came to now it's a fiercely competitive market, right? And I think we've taken the step back of keeping the product on a little step back. I think keeping the consumer at the forefront. And this is a slightly complicated purchase, unlike, let's say, FMCG, where you're directly talking to the consumer. Here you're talking to a consumer with a network of influencers, right? You're talking to, and the reason is very clear. Homes used to be built as a retirement project earlier, right? Today, homes are being built by people, average age is about 30 to 35, right? And imagine a person, 30 to 35, building the biggest project of his life. Unlike most of us, most people build just one home. It's a complicated project. Within that complicated project, you are actually clueless and you don't even know what you don't know. If you're buying a car, you broadly know the specs as to what to look for, the lay of the land. This is a project where you don't know what you don't know. And therefore you ask around. Therefore the biggest piece that is there, I think, in terms of supporting the jobs to be done from the consumer's point of view, is helping him in an irreversible process not to take expensive mistakes, right? I think we sell products, but we understand the bigger service is to make the consumer navigate this irreversible, very highly emotional, and very, very, very expensive. So, like you mentioned, I love the example that you gave, which is even if you buy a Maybach in India, you start with the question as to what's the mileage. I think we've framed versus being competitive, we've framed the category in India from a point of view of how to choose cement and why to spend effort and time in terms of, and being particular about buying a brand of cement by asking, you build your home only once, right? Ghar banta hai zindagi mein ek baar. That insight, that piece as to what it means as a piece of competence, as an identity, builds great empathy with consumers. It demonstrates to people that we understand that.
Yeah, so I think,
yeah,
thank you. I think what obviously is common, across some of the businesses, most of them, and in fact insurance as well, and your business is about knowledge and information exchange, which then has a linkage with trust and confidence in the brand, and in the process there's attachment and engagement with consumers. Yeah. So I think you want to say something?
Yeah, no. In fact, we treat our business or the decision making akin to getting married or possibly getting your father's heart operated, right? It's high stakes, it's irreversible, you don't have the knowledge, and therefore I think there is huge leverage for, or huge ask and consumer want for trust, expertise.
I mean, hearts do flutter when marriage happens as well. So I think that's a good example. Now, we are aware that we're living in the age of what is known as parody, criticism, connectedness, the network, 6 degrees of separation. We also know that there's this whole concept of the humanization of brands, wherein brands are nothing which on a pedestal. They all do good things. They all do not so great things either. How do you then, in that context, build or sustain, brands? Any thoughts on that side?
Yeah, I think it's a very, very critical question to which needs to be answered and pondered on by everyone, because in today's time, I think maybe especially for our category and I think for everyone, the only product that in the insurance category that you have is the trust. Because unlike any other category, when you buy an insurance product, you actually don't get anything. So you get a piece of paper which is so complicated that a consumer, they know it's important, but they don't understand much. But of course, they know a little bit about what they have bought. But the only time they actually experience the product is at the time. They wish they don't, both the manufacturer and the consumer wish that they don't want to use the product at all. But if they have to use a product, then the experience becomes extremely important, which is the claims, the point of claim. And so is for any other category that, be it air conditioner, or be it any other category, that once you, at least in those categories, when you buy it, you experience it immediately. But and then when there is a service issue, then the entire cycle. But I think if we fail the consumer at the point of service, so then the brand takes a very, very big hit. So you might have a great onboarding experience, but if the sales experience, the after sales or the after sales experience or the claims experience is not great, then you might end up losing the consumer. So that's where the entire focus, that's where the entire human touch and going. So I think a lot of times what happens is that we spend a lot of money in customer acquisition, but I think a lot of money needs to be spent on retention, which is the claims experience or the customer experience. That's where the more focus should be, because a great word of mouth of a customer is much, much stronger than a spot in a cricket match. So that's very important. And I think I would love to other panelists to even
Yeah, we'll
talk
do
about
that.
it.
There's this telling us in bright red, the time's up, but I'm sure we can spend about 2-3 odd minutes. Ajay sir, any thoughts on you have about building brands in such contexts?
In fact, I think we overthink products per se, if I can take that stretch. Value is not manufactured in factories, right? Or in size case, maybe by actuaries or that form. I think value is manufactured when there is an overlap in the consumer's life and context, and if the product can find overlap of serving any piece of progress or any jobs to be done that the consumer is looking for. Now, I think that's that identifying that context and identifying that overlap is the greatest value that we create. I think that allows us to, the biggest search engine I always believe is the human mind, right? You type on Google or Perplexity today, later, I think first you think something if a problem comes to your mind. That's the overlap. I think that's the greatest value that marketers and business people create by identifying as to what's the core need that you're serving across. The product fit onto that is oftentimes not as obvious, right? If we ask our consumers, why do you build homes? A lot of them give the rationalized answer, I'm building it for financial security, I'm building it for my kids, and so on and so forth. If you dig one level deeper, those reasons are actually not true, right? Most times people, a 32-year-old is building is from an identity and a competence proving point of view, right? So I think that is the epicenter of value in a business.
Thank you. And any parting shots, Rahul, very quickly on the same question, and then maybe Zoher also.
No, I think I'll just maybe
30
just
seconds
adding
each.
elements to what Sai and Ajay mentioned. I think cultural context for sure. I think authenticity gets borrowed from cultural context, where to plant the brand story or the brand narrative. And the other thing I think obviously is also about being consistent. I think a lot of value gets extracted by brands who tend to be consistent in what they're trying to put out, while obviously trying to look at newer cohorts, newer segments, etc., etc. But I would definitely also give an added value to cultural context, because that drives conversations.
From you?
I'll just add. So we have moved away from broadcast in the new medium to conversations. And this particular thing, brands add value if the brand can converse with them and talk with them. And that does not mean that the person has to tweet for the brand, but he is able to understand the brand well, and he's able to carry and live with the brand. So that particular element is the element which adds value beyond the product. This is how you move from commodities to branded commodities to brand to experiences. And that's the moment you move to the experience point of view, that is where the value and the premium is there. And that's where we create delight for the consumer, from just an conversation to a delight to the next level. That's what I would say.
Great, thank you. I think obviously time's up. I don't know whether there's any question, quick one from the audience, but do we have some time? There's one question, somebody. 2 questions? Perfect. Yes, ma'am. I think she might need a microphone, please. I can.
Yeah, go on, we can hear you. We can hear you.
So my question is actually to Mr. Ajay. So I still remember your ads with the caption called So, I just wish to understand from your experience, like if I wish to build a house, but ultimately as a end user, the choice to use the cement, which brand, whether Ambuja or UltraTech, I mean, it's with the contractor. So how do you take that into account? And one very crisp question to Mr. Sai Narayan, like, when I look at Policybazaar, I'm always missing that .com at the end suffix. So I just wanted to understand what % of your customers are acquired through offline modes, because generally we always think of it as a online platform. Thank you.
So very quickly answering your question in terms of decisions being made by consumer or not. In fact, very interesting that you asked. When I joined this business about 7 years ago, one of my first detective tasks, and that's what marketers do as the listening exercise. The storytelling is often remembered, the listening is not. I think the first task that we had to identify in a business which was very large was to find out who's the consumer, right? And long story short, we can possibly take it offline, but what we found out that for this 32-year-old fellow, first set of people that he goes to from a marriage father's heart operated equivalent decision, his anxiety is that he doesn't know. He asks around friends and family, right? And so what we got out is about 55% of the decision, and this is just to break the cookie to give you a sense, is by the consumer and friends and family. About 30% of the decision is made by the contractor, and there also in the conversation, it's an interesting exercise, because if you ask everybody from the contractor to the dealer to the engineer to the, everybody would give you the elephant's answer that as to I make the decision, rest of the category, right, 95% of the decision is made by me. So it was interesting detective work in terms of figuring out as to who's the core consumer in this case. What we identified, these are the two cohorts which are primary from a decision-making point, and therefore all the inciting work, therefore all the work that came out after that was which led to Ghar Banta Hai Zindagi Mein Ek Baar, and therefore why it is so critical and why you are competing versus not other cement brands but versus the same share of wallet versus paints and tiles and so on and so forth, and how we've extracted differentiation and premium in the category. Sorry, long answer, but it requires that kind of detective work. Some of these answers are actually not obvious.
Great, thank you. I think Sai, if you still remember the question.
No, I think what she asked is something I've been thinking for quite some time, because I feel the .com is quite redundant and I've been thinking of doing away with it for a while. But I think there is a dot, the circle is the dot actually, and then you get the com there. But apart from that, I think Policybazaar, that should be good enough. Yeah, I think .coms are anyway. So, but there's trademarks and legal, so I don't want to get into that right now. But that's the answer question. And in terms of our acquisition, so Policybazaar is the port of entry for every consumer. So everyone comes there. So 100% is digital. But if you're talking about the media through which we acquire, so right now we have around a 60-40 or a 65-35% ratio, 65 towards digital channels and 30-35 towards offline. And offline only includes TV. So yeah, so your digital would include everything from Google to Meta to influencers to app to our own database to so everything. So yeah, that.
And I would assume they feed off each other in a way. The entire
yeah,
strategy.
of course. So that's what the port of entry is. Policybazaar. So everyone kind of.
Thank you. I think one more question we have time for. That's it for now. Okay. Thank you. Maybe we'll take them offline. Thank you so much for being a great audience, and thank you for your participation. Great. Thank you.